I was that kid who had to draw a picture for every friend that entered our house. And much to my parents' chagrin, I had underbed storage boxes stuffed with every scrap of paper I made marks on, from restaurant menus to the backs of church bulletins. I loved to draw. In those early days, drawing was a form of play for me, of creative expression. Whatever image I had in my head, I would draw straight onto the page with my markers. When I got older and I started making hand-lettered art, I treated it the same way, as creative play. Whatever image or words came into my mind, I would draw straight onto the page with my Sharpies, like this. Very simple shapes, simple lines. It was a lot of fun for me. Now, that little hand lettering venture even got a clever name, Libby Doodle. I wish I could say this is my own genius idea to mash up my name and my passion, but actually Libby Doodle was a nickname I earned in college from a coworker who had watched me absently drawing paisleys on every piece of paper in our break room. Now, go back with me about a year and a half ago from now. We're sitting in front of my computer, and I'm talking to it. I just don't know if I can do this, I say. The phrase that prompted that response from me stares intently back from the screen. It says, "What can you not do?" Libby Doodle was about to make a turning point. In my Art for the Elementary Education majors class in college, we learned about the typical progression of a child's artwork skills. Around middle school is when most kids reach what we call the realism stage, and it's here that many kids' passions for art are made or broken. It's also here that many kids become painfully self-conscious of their artwork, and that's actually what happened to me. See, around 7th grade, I discovered the joy of trying to draw pictures of my friends from photographs. But after hearing a few too many times, well, those eyes aren't level, and that nose is not in proportion, instead of looking at it as helpful, I shut down. I stopped drawing. I thought I was a terrible artist. Even now, those memories evoke certain images and feelings in me. Disappointment, frustration, embarrassment, small, tight drawings, hard lines, and lots of erasure marks. So I decided I would stop drawing. I distanced myself from it. And though it never really went away, I focused on other hobbies instead. For example, I started to fall in love with fonts. I love how different words can be emphasized using different sizes and styles. For another, I fell in love with words themselves. Words have so much power. As we've seen, they can be used to encourage and build up in amazing ways. Nowadays, when I create a piece of Libby Doodle artwork, that's where I start. Words, images, feelings. I find a quote or a phrase that conjures these things up in my mind. Maybe a quote about bravery that calls for tall, strong letters, or something about creativity that screams for pattern and color. And then, the first thing I do is I go to my paper with a pencil. I like working in pencil because if I make a mistake, I can just erase it. It's like a second chance for free. Once I've got that layout penciled in and I'm happy with how it looks, I take a step back. I look at the bigger picture. I make sure I'm happy with how that looks. And then, when I'm satisfied with the bigger picture, that's when I go in and I complete the final lines with my Sharpie marker. Now, my love of inspirational words and phrases led naturally into a love of sharing inspirational words and phrases on social media in hopes that they would encourage other people the same way they encouraged me. But all too quickly, I realized I had a problem. It's way too easy for someone to just hit like, click favorite, and go on to the next thing in their timeline, and all opportunity for thoughtful reflection was being completely bypassed. But then I had another realization. If I complicated my social media posts just a little bit, the user would be forced to interact with them a little bit longer, and I would be sneakily buying time in which they may actually reflect on what they were reading. And thus, my Consider This Thought project was born. I knew that images got much more engagement on social media than straight up text, so I thought, I'm going to post these quotes as pictures. And to distinguish myself from the then popular inspirational quote against generic photo background, I decided that I would take pictures of myself holding these layouts. And then it was here that that familiar childhood voice kind of raised its little hand and said, hey, over here, pick me, I can help. And then it hit me. If I drew these layouts by hand instead of just printing them off, I could exercise much more control over how they looked. And by letting letters spill all around the page, the user would really be forced to interact with them just to decode what they were reading. Ha! Oh, but my darling, this was brilliant. I considered this thought art project was only supposed to last 1 week because I have a day job. But pretty quickly I started to receive messages in my inbox from people saying things like, that was just what I needed to hear. You can't stop now, you've got to keep going. And so, with the encouragement of my friends, I started uploading a few posters a week to a quiet little webpage called Consider This Thought. Now, a funny thing happens when you start to pay attention to those little things you love to do, but you never really gave any credit to before. You start to find out just how important they really are. I realized I couldn't not doodle. I made time for it every single day. It became like a little getaway, an oasis amid the busy city of my life. And my life was already really cool and fulfilling as it is. As previously mentioned, my job as a flight director at an educational space simulator entailed putting on a blue NASA flight suit every day and flying kids on missions to outer space, full time. That's pretty cool. Yet, still I found myself making time on the side to doodle. I couldn't stop. And slowly, I started to reach people. Now fast forward with me from there about a year, and I became involved in a little online community called the START Experiment. As the movers and shakers of this group became exposed to my artwork, the messages in my inbox took on a new flavor. Oh, this is good stuff, they said. It's time for you to take the next step. Whoa, what? Hold on, no. I am not an artist. No, I am a geek, and I like to doodle on the side. That's what I believed about myself. But these START people would have none of that. They told me things like, Libs, this is who you are. You reach more people than you realize. They told me that I am an artist and that my work has value, something I did not believe about myself. A handful of them rallied around me and started brainstorming about opening up a shop online, getting my work printed. One of them even hired me for my first original commission design. In short, they believed in me. And it was then that phrase on that computer screen, what can you not do, hit me the very hardest. I knew for me, it was doodling. I couldn't hide it anymore. Still, I had fears. I'm not trained to do this. There are so many more qualified people. I don't need to throw my voice into the mix. What if I fall? Now, when I first was hired to draw the piece you see here, I wrote the phrase, what if I fall, in the same kind of tall, strong letters that you see. This was a commissioned piece, and after talking it over with my client, we decided that wasn't really conveying the emotion that we wanted to. She suggested I use a font that showed more weakness and fragility, and as I began to play around with that idea, the phrase really came into its own. In fact, the letters started to tumble down the page as if they were literally facing the very activity they feared, falling. This piece reached a turning point where we made this change. In the same way, my Libby Doodle artwork reached a turning point when I decided to face the very activity I feared, taking the next step. With the help of my friends, I opened a little online shop. I started offering my services. I even registered with my state. I'm a small business owner now. That is not something I ever would have imagined for myself before. And since then, I've been able to design countless logos, posters, t-shirts, and other gifts of encouragement. It's a blast. Now, still I have concerns. What if they don't like my work? What if I don't get it right on the first try? I'm learning now that it takes a new kind of courage to take that little thing that you love and hold it out to the world as a gift where they can criticize it. And I don't always get it right on the first try, but I keep doodling. And by paying attention to this little part of myself that I had never really given any credit to before, I'm able to reach even more people than I could have imagined. Take that little quiet web page, for example. About a year and a half ago, it became a trending blog on Tumblr, and in the course of a single week, I gained over 10,000 followers. I now get messages from people in my inbox telling me how much their work means to me, means to them, and how much it has inspired them, and I may never meet them. I am flying, and I couldn't be any happier. And in the end, it was flying. Flying was what I could not do. Because I decided to pay attention to that little part of myself I had tried to shut down all those years ago. And because I had people around me who believed in me and helped me to spread my wings and face my fear head on. And I believe that this is true for all of us. We are all made to fly. We're not all going to get there by doodling, but each one of us has a path. And so, I ask you this. What can you not do? Thank you.